Hello and welcome to Nbyula Talks. Before we begin, we have a few updates and reminders for you. We would love to have you be part of our Nbyula community. And you can do so by logging on to www.nbyula.com, where you can join communities related to your area of interest, register for upcoming Nbyula Talks, book one-to-one skylifts, and view other upcoming events. You can also take this opportunity to connect with fellow learners or the speaker by sending a connection request. When you connect with the speaker, you will be able to contact them directly as well as receive updates about their upcoming talks. Kindly note that during the session, you will not be able to switch on your camera or unmute your mic. To ask questions during the talk, go to the audience chat, type your question, and select Post Your Question. If your question has not been answered during the talk, you will be notified once it's been answered, or if your question has not been answered during the talk, you can go to www.nbyula.com and spin a quest, and your questions will be answered. Thank you for joining us today. We hope this talk broadens your horizons and takes you to new learning heights. Hi everyone, welcome back to another Nbyula Talk. My name is Sarah, and today we'll be discussing the common mistakes to avoid during the IELTS listening section. Let's get started. But before we get started, I just have a poll for you guys. If you could just answer that, posting it now. Okay, and the poll is, let's come up. Why do you think people find the listening exam difficult? Go ahead and give in your answers. Why do you think people find the listening exam difficult? Maybe they're unable to understand the question or the exam, or probably lack of concentration, or maybe lack of multitasking skills. If you have any other ideas as to why people find the listening exam difficult, go ahead and put it in the chat. Let's see. Okay, so most people think that they are unable to understand the question or the exam, and that's why it's difficult for them. Not a problem. Today we'll be looking at these common mistakes that happen and how to avoid them, and sometimes these difficulties would lead to those mistakes. So let's have a look. All right. First of all, before we get into today's talk, we're going to just have a brief introduction about the IELTS. This is for those of you who are new to the IELTS, or for those of you who already have an idea about the IELTS. That's okay. This is just a recap for you. So basically, IELTS stands for International English Language Testing System, and it's for non-native English language speakers who are looking to work, study, or migrate abroad. This test or exam tests the 4 language skills, which are your listening, your reading, your writing, and your speaking. And as we discussed at the beginning, we'll be looking at your listening skills. So let's have a brief about the listening section. The listening section lasts for 30 minutes, and you'll have 10 minutes transfer time. So the total time you have for the exam is 40 minutes. Here, transfer time just means the answers that you write on your question paper, you'll have 10 minutes to transfer those answers onto the answer sheet. There are also 40 questions and 4 parts, so each part consists of 10 questions. First part is a general discussion between 2 people discussing social or everyday kind of topics. The second one is a monologue. Third one can be another discussion with 2 or more people, and that's in a more of an academic kind of setting. And the final one is an academic kind of monologue. Right? So 30 minutes plus 10 minutes transfer time, 40 questions, and 4 parts. And the marking criteria goes as follows. You'll get 1 point for each correct answer. So at the bottom, as you can see, I've just given the general band score to raw score out of 40. So if you score maybe 16 or 17 out of 40, you'll get a band 5. Band 6 is 23, 24, and so on and so forth. And band score 9 would be 39 to 40. It's important to know how you're being marked as well, so you know how to attempt the exam. All right, now we're going to move on to the types of questions you might face during your listening exam. So you might have questions like multiple choice questions, matching questions, labeling diagrams, also completing notes, tables, and summary completion, and also sentence completion and short answer kind of questions. So a total of 6 types of questions that you could face in your listening exam. This is also very important to know the kinds of questions that could come up, and we'll discuss why in a bit. All right, so let's go on to discuss the common mistakes that you could make during the exam and how to avoid those mistakes. First of all, losing your focus. This is quite a common mistake that we make during the exam, lead the exam, probably in everyday life as well. We do lose our focus, but here we're focusing on this mistake during the exam. So how do we lose our focus, or how can we lose our focus during the exam? What would happen is we'll be listening to the exam, we'll be listening to the audio during the exam, and we'll be trying to find the answer. So they would have said something and we're looking to find the answer, or we're listening for the answer. And what would happen is we're focusing so much on finding that one answer that we would have missed maybe 2 or 3 other answers that were said in the audio. As you might know, or if you don't, I will just explain. The audio that's being played is continuous. So there's no stopping, there's no pausing, there's no going back to hear the audio again, or that piece, that part 1, part 2, part 3, or part 4. So you have to be, focused and pay attention to what each and every word that's being said, so that you're not focused on one particular answer. If you don't get that answer, it's okay. Move on, and you can always come back during that transfer time and go and answer the question. So here's a tip for you in case you find yourself losing focus while you're practicing as well. You can always just move on to the next question. Again, if it's being said, you do not want to spend more than maybe 30 seconds to a minute or even 2 minutes just trying to hear one answer, where 2 or 3 more answers would have been said. So just take a deep breath, be calm, and move on to the next question. All right. Our next one is blindly listening to the audio. We don't mean just going into the exam and covering your eyes and listening to the audio. Here we mean just listening without reading, without understanding what the audio is about, reading the instructions, reading the question. It's always important to read through the question, read through what is asked of you, maybe just understand what the audio might be about, so that you'll be able to go through the paper, find what you might have to look and answer, and then answer accordingly. So the tip here would be understand the context of the audio and the information you will get from it before you even begin. And again, you can just do this by reading the instructions, going through the questions. You'll have maybe 30 seconds to 1 minute before the audio starts playing. So use that time wisely to go through the question paper. Yes, read the instructions properly. All right, the next one is not using your prediction skills. This goes hand in hand with the one that we just spoke about before, blindly listening to the audio, okay? Not using your prediction skills. So how can you use your prediction skills, and what do we mean by using your prediction skills? Again, going through the questions, going through the instructions, making sure you understand what is being asked of you, so that it's smooth when you're listening to the audio. You'll be able to say, okay, here's this answer, or this is a number, or this is a keyword that I should look out for. So let me show you an example of how you can use your prediction skills. So here we have a question. Again, read the question, read the instructions, complete the notes below, write no more than 3 words and or a number for each answer. We'll come back to that very specific instruction as well, but let's just move on. So here we see there'll be an audio played about Minton's Cart Mart, okay? And they have given you certain things and you have to fill in the blanks. So they've given you the make, they've given you the engine size, so that's question number 1. The model, which is max, type of gears, question number 2 that you have to answer, preferred color. So when you're predicting, when you're looking at the question, look at question number 1, engine size. So here, if you think about it, you'll probably be thinking that you'll be asked, what is maybe the capacity of the engine. So when we talk about engine size, we're looking at capacity, and that will be said in liters. So the key word that you'll be looking out for is liters. So you'll be looking out for a number, a specific number, and then the word liters. For number 2, types of gears, you might be familiar with the different types of gears. There are only 2. So you'll be looking out for either is it automatic or manual. And for number 3, you can go ahead and predict what kind of blue it would be. The type of blue. Is it light blue? Is it dark blue? Or is it a specific blue, like maybe sky blue or sea green blue or something like that? Okay, so you can look and listen, look at the questions beforehand and listen for these keywords and use your prediction skills to say, okay, this is what's going to be asked of me. So the tip here would be, understand the type of audio or the context you'll be listening to. Like we said, it goes hand in hand with not blindly listening to the audio or blindly listening to it. And also underline the keywords that can help you predict the answer. Keywords, concentrate on keywords, synonyms, and paraphrases that are used. All right, distractors. First, let's understand what are distractors. Distractors are something that the examiners and the exam paper has been put in to kind of, as the word describes, distract you and kind of trick you into thinking that an answer that looks and appears correct probably isn't the answer. But you know what? Distractors are actually very important, because once you have the distractor, you'll know that the answer is somewhere close by. What do I mean by that? Let's have a look. Here's an example of a question where a woman is arranging to book a hire car to make the journey when she arrives. So here the question would be, the answer that you need to find is the date of booking. So in the audio, the man would say, okay, I just have to fill out this form for you. So what date do you want to book this for? So the woman goes on to say, the 16th of October. So here, the distractor is 16th of October. We might write that down, but wait, that's not the right answer. The actual answer is, let's go on to read, oh no, sorry, that's my departure date. I arrive on the 17th, so book it for then, please. So the actual answer is the 17th and not the 16th. We have one more example. Here's another example where you're filling out a table, the type of questions that we looked at. So it's a table filling question. And we have to see where the part-time job is available. So as the audio goes on to say, the advisor will say, but you need to be there at 6 a.m. Does that appeal? The student will go on to say 6 o'clock in the morning. Oh, that's too early for me. I'm afraid I'll never make it early in the morning. So the advisor says, well, there was a position going in the computer lab for 3 days a week. That might be okay. But when she's going to check on the computer, she realizes, no, here it is. It's actually in the library, not the lab. So this person is applying for the clerical assistant job, and you think that it's going to be for the computer lab, but actually it's for the library. So that's how distractors work. And that's what I meant when I said earlier to say, pay close attention to these and know that the answer is actually coming in the next line. So the tip here would be, put your assumptions aside. Don't think that the first thing that you hear is the right answer. Listen for a bit longer and see whether that is actually the answer or whether the correct answer is coming up. And how you can do that is you can listen for words such as no, or sorry, or oops, or whatever they say before that, and they correct themselves. That would be the correct answer. All right. The next common mistake that we find people doing is ignoring the instructions. Now, this is very important to read the instructions before you answer the question. And like I said before, I said we'd come back to this, and this is why. You would get a question maybe that says, complete the notes below and write no more than 2 words and or a number for each answer. This is important because if you write more than 2 words or more than a number or plus words that is more than that, your marks will go down. You will not get the mark for that question because simply you did not follow the instructions. Okay, so make sure that you follow the instructions, read the instructions carefully before you start, underline it if you have to, like I've done here, and make sure that when you're answering, you know how to answer it. Again, the tip is read your instructions carefully. The next error that we find is that we make spelling errors or grammatical mistakes. This is quite common. We'll go one by one. We'll talk about spelling mistakes and how we make those. So when we're jotting down our answers, we're listening, we're writing, we have a lot of stress going on, and we have to make sure that we have to, get the answer. And we might forget how to spell things in that hurry. So we might misspell city names or months or dates or nouns, anything that requires more attention to when we're spelling, we might spell it wrong. And when we transfer that answer onto the question, the answer sheet, it will be marked wrong because of spelling. So we need to pay attention to our spellings and make sure that we use that 10-minute transfer time to go ahead and check the notes that we have taken on the question paper and make sure we transfer it correctly and check our spelling. Leave time to check your spelling and your grammar. Again, grammar, the mistakes that you could make is that when you're transferring, it might be a singular word or it might be a plural word and you've added an S if it's singular, or if it's plural, you might have missed the S. That's an example of a grammatical error. So you need to check and listen carefully whether it's, for example, plural or singular, and make sure that you've transferred the correct answer onto your answer paper. So here, you have to really listen carefully to the audio, make sure that you leave time to check your spelling, and make sure that, all your grammar and your spelling is correct before you submit your paper. The next mistake is that you're not aware of the different question types. So at the beginning, when I said pay a little attention to the types of questions, this is why I said that. There's some times where when we're practicing, we practice a certain type of question. We might not practice all the questions because we might think, first of all, we're comfortable with just the few questions that we know and we're confident that these are the only ones that'll come up on the paper. Or we might not be comfortable practicing the other ones because it makes us feel uneasy or it's a little difficult for us. So we might skip practicing those questions, or we might just not be aware of the different question types. So here it's very important to understand the different question types, especially when you're practicing for your exam, so that you practice each question accordingly and you develop your own little routine and your own little tips and tricks for that, so that in case if a question comes up on the question paper, you won't be surprised. You'll be like, I know how to answer that question. So do know the different types of questions, do practice how to do the different types of questions so that you're ready for the exam. That was the tip there. All right, the next mistake that we find ourselves doing during the exam is leaving blank answers. Here, you need to understand that leaving blank answers is not actually advised and it's not really encouraged. You should just put down any answer, even if it's a guess, okay? So what happens is we leave blank answers because we're not sure. Maybe we didn't hear it when the audio is playing. And you should just understand also that there are no wrong answers. You will not get marked down for a wrong answer or for an incorrect answer. So it's always better to just guess. Also, what happens is if you leave blank answers, when you're going to write the answer in the answer sheet, you might write the correct answer in the wrong space. So again, that blank has created a little confusion there for you, and you in your hurriness or in your rushed state of mind, you might write the right answer in the wrong place or the wrong answer in the right place. It just back and forth. So know that if you don't know the answer, just have a guess. Just take a guess, write something down, because again, there is no negative marking. So you never know, your guess could be right. Okay, another common mistake that we find ourselves doing during the exam is writing on the answer sheet while listening to the audio. So it's always temptation for us to be like listening to something and just jotting it down, but on the answer sheet, that too, not even on the question paper, we do it on the answer sheet. And what happens there is we probably spend a bit more time. If it's wrong, we'll cross it out or we'll erase it and then we'll keep writing it, and we miss out what the next answer could be. We spend time writing it on the answer sheet, and we miss out. So the tip here is use the transfer time to transfer your answers and not use the time that you're listening to the audio to write down your answers on the answer sheet. You can always make notes while the audio is playing. You can always, while you're practicing, also form a system where maybe, you're answering question one and you might miss the answer, but say, write a certain note there, put a one next to it so that you can go back during your transfer time, or you can go back and just answer that question or just have a guess. Create a system for yourself so you know if I miss it, I can always answer it later, or what to do to find that answer later. Okay, so let's go through the tips that we learned today according to the common mistakes that we tend to make during the listening exam. First of all, tip number one, understand the context of the audio. Again, don't blindly go into listening to the audio and just answering the questions. Understand the context. You have 30 seconds to 1 minute before the audio starts playing. So go through the questions, understand what you have to write, read the instructions, know maybe is it a conversation between two people at the library? Is it a conversation with a shopkeeper and a client? Know what you're going to listen to before you attempt the paper. Use your time wisely. Make sure that you've been practicing and you know how to use your time. This paper is a very short paper. It's just 30 minutes of listening. So you have to develop time management skills and use your time wisely during the exam. Don't spend too long on a question. Don't spend too long trying to find the answer. Make sure that if you do not find the answer, then just skip it, come back to it, or write some notes so that you know you can come back to it and answer it on the answer sheet later. Again, if you don't know the answer, just guess. Try not to leave any blank spaces. This goes for when you're practicing your exam. Don't leave blank spaces, just take a guess. Because remember, there's no negative marking. Listen carefully. I think that's a given. As it is a listening exam, do pay attention to whatever is being said, whatever is being heard on the audio or said on the audio. Make sure you hear it correctly and make sure you tune your listening skills. So you can do that by just practice any kind of past paper. Listen to different kind of audios, know it, understand what people are saying, because what happens is during these audios, there'll be different accents being used. You could probably hear a British accent or an American accent or an Australian accent. So tune your ears to understand these accents as well, so that on the day of the exam, you're ready. Again, read the instructions carefully. Make sure you know what is being asked of you. Answer it in no more than 2 words, no more than 3 words, and/or a number. These are very, very important keywords because you should know that if you answer more than 2 words or more than 3 words, depending on the instruction, you will get no marks for that. You will be marked incorrectly. Also, use your prediction skills, like we spoke about at the beginning. Understand what is going to be coming in the audio. Look at the different keywords. Find these keywords, know that, okay, maybe it's a number that I have to find, or maybe it's a date that I have to find, or maybe it's a name. Understand that, use your prediction skills, and then answer. Check your work. This is also very, very important. Check your work, check your answers. Again, you have that 10-minute transfer time. You have that time to transfer the answers. You have that time to check your work, check your spelling, because again, if your spelling is incorrect, you will be marked down, or you won't be given the mark for that question. You might have the right answer, but it's spelled wrong. Think about it, just that one mark that could change your band score. So do check your spelling, do check what you've written, make sure that you have all the answers there, make sure that there are no blanks. Again, you can just guess. Make sure that your answer sheet is full of answers so that you can get the marks you deserve. Okay, so that was the end of our talk for this. We have time for some audience questions. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and type it in the audience chat. And all you have to do is type your question and say post question, and the question will come up. Okay, I can start you off with a common question that usually is being asked many times, and that is to do with the headset or the speaker. And sometimes people ask, will they give headsets for the listening exam? Now, this depends on whether you are doing your paper-based or your computer-based. If you're taking the exam on the paper, what happens is you will either get a headset or it'll be played through the speaker. So you need to find out, have a chat with your exam center and find out whether they are presenting the listening exam and they'll give you headphones or whether it's a speaker. So do that beforehand so that you can practice. Practice both, I would say. Practice listening through the headset and listening to the speaker so that in case on the day something changes, you're prepared. And if you're taking the computer-based test, then you will be provided a headset. Okay, so Vinny has asked a question. How can I write down everything I listen to in a listening test? Should I do it? So maybe you don't need to write everything that you hear. Listen out for the key words. So that's why if you look through the question paper beforehand, then you'll know what kind of things you're looking for. So you will be able to say, like I said before, dates. If it's something like a date, know that you're listening out for numbers. If it's a time, know it. For the example that we took earlier on, if it's a specific color, listen for that. Listen for keywords and phrases. Sometimes it could be paraphrased as well. So make sure that you're prepared and you know different synonyms and different ways that these answers could be presented and paraphrased. All right. Another question that we have is write no more than 2 words and or a number. What does it really mean in IELTS listening? In the question, you'll have the instruction saying write no more than 2 words and or a number. So what that means is you just need to write down 2 words or a number. So for example, if the question is, what time does the train leave? And the answer is 3 a.m., write 3 a.m. You don't need to write 3 in the morning because it will be 3 in the morning. That's 4 words, right? So that will be marked incorrect. Just write down in 2 or more words or 3 or more words, depending on the instruction, and that you'll have your answer. Okay. All right, we have a lot of questions today. Another common question that we face and that we see is, should I write in pencil or pen? My advice here and the advice that's been given is do write in pencil because it's easier in case you make a mistake to erase it. So bring a pencil, bring 2 pencils, bring an eraser, a good eraser, and do not write your answers in pen. Because once you're transferring your answers, or if by chance you by mistake write it on the answer sheet and it's the wrong answer, it'll just be a mess on the paper. So bring a pencil, write in pencil. All right. Lots of questions today. Yep. Is it possible to get a band 8 in the IELTS listening by scoring 34 out of 40? So we can just go back to my slideshow, or 1 second. Okay, so just take a look at this, right? So in order to get a band 8, you'll need between 34 to 35-ish to get a band 8. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Also, sometimes people ask, what is the difference between the paper-based and the listening, the paper-based and the computer-based, sorry. So basically, during the paper-based, the audio is continuous, it's simultaneous, there's no pausing, there's no break, and your transfer time for the paper-based test is 10 minutes, whereas for the computer-based test, you'll only have 2 minutes to verify your answers. All right. All right. I think that's all the time that we have for questions today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you found this talk helpful, do subscribe to our channel, do share it with your friends, and do go back and listen to it. We'll have the recording ready, and once it's ready, you can always go back and have a look at that. Also, if you know friends who are preparing for the IELTS exam and you think that this will be helpful for them, do share it. Once this talk is complete, you'll be sent a feedback link. Please do provide your feedback and let us know what you thought. Thank you so much once again for joining us. We'll see you for our next talk. Our upcoming talk is on Thursday in the next couple of days, and we'll be discussing time management skills for the reading exam. See you then.